Today we have Will Brereton with us. Will, welcome to today's podcast.
Thank you for having me.
You've been in the industry for a while now and you have done many things, but for those of who joined the podcast for the first time and don't know who you are, could you just tell us where you've come from, what you've done, and what was the initial spark that brought you into Group X?
Sure. So my name is Will. I'm the founder of a company called Shift, which I will get to later. But if I take it back to the start of my career in group fitness, I am a Kiwi. So I'm from New Zealand, as you may be able to hear from the accent. And like most group fitness instructors from New Zealand, I actually started teaching with Les Mills in New Zealand 25 years ago. That's not true. I started at my university rec centre. I used to play a lot of sports. I was fast and I was strong, but I have really bad hand-eye coordination. And so in my first year of university, a friend of mine brought me along to an aerobics class at the University Rec Centre. And I've got quite good rhythm. Not a great dancer, but I can keep a beat. And I just immediately was good at doing like high-intensity aerobics effectively. And then about 2 weeks after my first class, the instructor came up and gave me the shoulder tap that a lot of people get and told me I should teach. So I taught at the University Rec Centre for about a year. And then someone told me I should go to Les Mills, and then I went to Les Mills, did body attack with a guy called Bevan, who Les Mills instructors would know, and I was just hooked. I ended up giving up rugby because I was getting so battered, and I played until I was about 21, but I wasn't super great. I was getting too injured to be able to teach my classes, and that became my part-time job. So teaching was my way of earning money when I was at university. So I'm a lawyer by training. Did that in parallel. So I was at university doing my law degree. And then I was living in a place called Christchurch, which is in the South Island of New Zealand, teaching at Les Mills there. And then when I graduated and worked for my private practice law firm in intellectual property, so I'm a technology intellectual property lawyer, I also started teaching at Les Mills, Auckland, which is the home of Les Mills. And then just kind of rose up through the ranks there, was mentored by some amazing instructors and ended up being one of their presenters on, as they then were DVDs for Body Attack and Body Step. And then like most New Zealanders who get to their mid-20s and have done a degree and then a couple of years of work under their belt, I did my OE, which is the Overseas Experience, came to London and started working as a lawyer in London. So I was a television lawyer. I worked at ITV and Channel 5, and then I was working as a Les Mills trainer on the weekends. So I arrived in London when I was 25, and in that first couple of years, just prior to the global financial crash, I was working as a lawyer Monday to Friday, and then Friday night I would fly to Spain and I'd spend the weekend in Barcelona teaching classes. Then I'd fly back Sunday night, go back to work Monday, and then repeat the following weekend in a different European location. So it was amazing. I got to do so much travel, got to see all of Europe, and then that kind of dried up at the 2008 for obvious reasons. But that was my journey to the UK. And then I've kind of done a mixture of business and instructing stuff. I have continued to be a lawyer and I've dipped into working full-time in fitness. So I helped set up Les Mills UK as their business affairs person, so doing legal stuff. Then I went and worked for a company called Beachbody, who are the makers of Insanity and P90X. That was a job that was based in London, but it had a lot of time spent in LA. So I would go out to Santa Monica to the offices there. And then in 2016, I decided I'd set up my own company because I wanted to give it a go. So finished up at Beachbody and set up Shift, which was designed to that's not the right word. It was designed to solve a lot of the problems that I experienced with Les Mills and with Beachbody in terms of just the operational difficulty. Both of those companies did amazing things and had great products, but there were certain things that they had in their supply chain or their operations that were difficult just because they were historical companies. So at the time, you were still sending out CDs and DVDs and physical product. And I could see that everyone was moving towards digital only using their smartphone. So we started Shift as a bit of a Zumba analog in terms of an instructor format, but for bodyweight interval training. And then we started that in 2017, 2018, and everything was to the phone. And instructors kind of didn't get it.
You were too early.
Yeah, it was a little bit too early. They would come to the training and they were really excited about it. And then they're like, okay, so when do I get my choreography notes in the post? And I'm like, there are no choreography notes. There is no DVD. It's all on your phone. And then we grew gradually for like the late 20 teens. And then the pandemic was bad for everyone in fitness,
Yeah.
but the one good thing about it for us is that it forced all instructors to get across technology. So the fact that we were digital first and sending everything to a phone, and like our goal was to make it simple, easy, and cheap for instructors so that they could teach classes more effectively and spend more time on the things that matter, which we'll probably talk about my opinions on that. But the good thing about the pandemic is that everybody kind of got across the technology required to be an instructor. And so we've continued to grow after that. And now we supply full group fitness programs to some of the biggest gyms in the world, like Pure Gym and 24 Hour Fitness in the States.
Yeah, it's been a big journey, right?
It has.
But what I find fascinating with it, Will, as well, is you haven't come from the stereotypical background of someone into group exercise. You know, for a lot of people out there will be going, oh, he's a rugby player beforehand. You know, like they don't tend to think about that. So what I want to pick up on today is really around the gender split, because you are a leader and you're one of the not few, there is a large number of men out there, but fighting the fight for men in the classes. Is there a difference, do you see, from across the world and maybe New Zealand and UK on the representation of men in group exercise?
Yeah, quite a big difference. Obviously, New Zealand it's not the home of group fitness, but it is one of the most important places for group fitness, thanks to Les Mills that have obviously created like a world famous product and do everything very excellently. In New Zealand, I would say that probably 50% of the people that teach group fitness are male. And it depends a little bit on the class, but a lot of classes will just be 50-50 split, which is very different. I think in the UK, group fitness is culturally coded as something that's a lot more female. Although I have to say the UK is not as bad as the USA. When I first started working at Beachbody, we were talking about how we could get more users into our instructor program, and it was about 90-95% female. And my suggestion was, why not men? And they just stared at me like, what are you thinking? That's just not realistic. So the UK is not as bad, but certainly it's a noticeable difference from New Zealand and Australia, where you have a lot of guys teaching, you have a lot of guys participating in classes. Particularly if it's a strength or a circuit style class, they will often be 50-50, or even there'll be more guys than girls in a class, which is unusual in the UK.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I noticed it a lot was I was one of those people who did the Les Mills training and saw it on the DVDs. There was a very early on, good 15, 20 years ago, split of male-female presenters, even in things like Body Step as well. So what do you think are the reasons why we see the gender gap, especially in the UK?
So I think ultimately with anything in group fitness is no different. People need to see themselves represented in order to feel that they belong. So it's a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy that if you have an industry that's mostly dominated by females and very talented females, I should say, like, I think it's important that group fitness is a safe space for women to train. So when I talk about wanting to get more guys in, it's not wanting to suggest that it's bad that it's such a safe space for women. But if all you see are classes led by women with mostly women, men just don't feel like they belong. Whereas in New Zealand, you have a lot of people that, you know, they're really fit, they're sports people, and they will go into a class because it's seen as something that is a normal thing for a guy who's into fitness to do, is to teach a class. It's not quite seen to the same degree here, which is something I would like to change.
Yeah, no, and it does actually relate to, we did a participant survey, I think 2-3 years ago, and one of the big things we do, it's a national survey with YouGov, was around finding out that people are saying, I won't go to group exercise because I don't see people who look like me. That's not just related to men, but that's people with disabilities and stuff like that. So I think it's that one thing I think operators and everyone doing their own marketing who's listening to the podcast needs to think about is like, am I representing the people I want to attract within my class? Because we hear a lot of people going, I need to attract and retain more participants. And actually, if you're kind of putting a stereotypical imagery, if you walk around London like we're in today, most of the imagery you see outside of a gym is of a perfect body, of and majority women and not the men base. So I think it's just that switch that people just need to think about in their marketing, whether it be an operator or even an instructor working on their own, is how am I attracting those right people? You
need to see different types of people represented, and that applies to young, old, male, female, abled, differently abled. There's also never been a better time to get more different types of people, including men, into classes, because the trends that we see all across everyone that we work with is that choreography is not really the thing driving group fitness forward. It's still very important. I know that there'll be a lot of people that'll be listening to this that are members of EMD that won't like hearing that. It's not that choreographed classes no longer have a place. They're still very, very important for the industry, but they're not the backbone of any big gym. The backbone of any big gym has moved into strength training, Pilates, which is often not choreographed. It's done to music, but it's not really choreographed in the sense of a body combat class or a Zumba class. And in my experience, the biggest barrier to men attending class is choreography because they think they'll look stupid.
Yeah.
I had a specific experience, which I've recounted a few times, but I used to teach a body attack class at a gym in Clapham. It was a very busy gym on a Saturday morning, decent sized studio for London, not quite the 200 people in New Zealand, but fit about 30, 40 people. And I used to teach a 10 a.m. body attack class. And body attack, for people that don't know, it's choreographed to the music, but it's essentially plyometric lunges, high knee runs, burpees, that kind of thing. And I would have guys standing outside looking in, and the class was probably about 80-20, like 80-20 male-female split. And then when I left Les Mills and went to Beachbody, I brought Insanity to that class. So I just switched it from a body attack class to an Insanity class. All of the movements are effectively the same. It's high knee runs, it's plyometric lunges, it's burpees, but the difference is that it wasn't done on the beat of the music. So you had all these guys that were standing outside a class watching everyone do a burpee in perfect time, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then they from sort of week to week, they saw a class where everyone was doing burpees at their own pace. And my numbers just shot up. I had it went from being, I don't know, having about 27 people roughly to having about 40 people. And all of the additional people were men. Men who had watched that class for 2 years, 3 years maybe, and seen that the movements were things that they could do, but they had been too scared to come in. And the minute they saw everyone moving in a bit of a mess compared to what it was before, they just didn't feel the fact that they would stick out like a sore thumb or look stupid. Men worry about looking stupid.
Yeah.
And the move away from choreography towards strength means that we have an opportunity to bring men into class, not just because strength is something that they see themselves in, but because working in intervals and working in a non-choreographed way is just going to be more appealing to them.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for listening. Did you know that EMD UK provides group exercise instructors with professional support and training for less than the cost of hiring a hall for a day? Keep up with the sector, stay on top of training, and receive exclusive content at emduk.org. Now, back to the discussion. Is there other ways that we can get more men into group exercise?
If I was an operator and I identified the fact that I needed more men sort of within my club, I personally would probably approach sports teams, particularly because most sports are seasonal rather than all year round. So you've got someone that clearly is involved in fitness in the community and potentially has an off season where they might want to continue to do some sort of stuff. So trying to bridge that gap between sports and fitness in a way that, as I said before, in New Zealand, it's seen as a sports thing. Like if you go to Les Mills in Auckland, the All Blacks will be training there sometimes. And you'll see people in classes quite often. And so, trying to bridge that gap and potentially source from a sports club or a sports team feels like it would be
every town in the UK will have a football team, a rugby team, and not just that, not from a pro level through down to
grassroots, right? And the grassroots, and there'll be a season where they're not doing anything, and so both the coach and the players could probably do with something to do in the off season.
Yeah, absolutely, and to build and prevent injury. That's how you can sum it. It's an injury prevention rather than just a cure as well. We've talked about this before, was around the High Rocks generation. We're talking about how High Rocks is there, but there's an opportunity for group exercise instructors to tap into that market, right? Because you're seeing people that as you said earlier, is in reality a group format. People are working in pairs or working in groups. How can we utilise that in a group setting?
The great thing about High Rocks is, like CrossFit before it and like Zumba and like Soul Cycle, is that sometimes you just have these fitness things that permeate into the general consciousness. So I've been working in group fitness for a long time, as we said already. people didn't always know what Les Mills was. They certainly knew it if they were from within the industry, but it didn't necessarily permeate outside of that. Zumba was the first brand that people who had nothing to do with gyms or fitness knew what it was. So it really put its head above the parapet and was known in popular culture. High Rocks is really known because it's had so much popularity, particularly with younger people. The good thing about High Rocks is it's a mass participation event. I would argue that it's potentially a group fitness event, but we may differ on that. But working back from that, it provides people with a goal and a target to work towards, and they need to develop fitness to work towards that. With some of the big gyms that we work with, it hasn't been launched yet, so I'm not going to say who, but we're working on a functional training format specifically designed to get people ready for High Rocks.
Right.
High Rocks have their own group training, but obviously the simplicity of High Rocks is what a lot of people are drawn to. And so it's really easy for any gym. They might not be able to use the High Rocks name because obviously there's a licensing consideration, but if they wanted to do a hybrid race training class, they could create a hybrid race training class really easily. Or they could use our programming, which we do. Or they could do circuit by shift.
Nice little nudge and promo there by Will Brereton. Okay, yeah, I think that's always what we're trying to help instructors understand is there is opportunities. It's not taking over. Some people might go, oh, it's taking people away from what I'm doing. Actually, no, you can create programming and classes, and we talked about on some of the other podcasts around 6-week blocks. How can you create that? Is like a 6-week running into a race, and that goes for not just things like High Rocks, right? That is how an instructor can develop themselves into being more around other sporting events. Someone who's doing triathlon, someone who's running.
Yeah, exactly.
You can develop your programming into a 6-week program of just analysing the movement patterns and helping prevent injury.
So one of the things that I think I have realised by being in the industry for as long as I've been in, and this actually comes back to my old colleague Bevan, who people may not know, but he's a legend in New Zealand and Les Mills. He made the comment that we as group fitness instructors are not like normal people in that we want to exercise. And so I've never lacked for motivation. Like I know that exercising will make me feel better. I don't always do it in a group setting. Sometimes I'll sit on my spin bike at home in the kitchen and just listen to music. I know that exercise will make me feel better. I'm very intrinsically motivated. Most people are not like that. That's why we've sat at around 15 to 20% penetration and not been able to get above it.
Absolutely.
What we do know is that people will get motivation around an event. And the one thing I will say about training for an event like High Rocks is that it makes me a lot happier than getting thin for your wedding or getting summer body ready, which is a lot of how we used to market this aesthetically based short-term motivation with a goal in mind. So like having a goal that is a fitness goal is already a step in the right direction in my perspective, because not everybody is going to be motivated all year round. A lot of people are, and I think that most instructors would find that the people that come to their classes are not necessarily motivated by a cyclical thing or a goal. They're coming because they like the community and their friends are there and all those social aspects. But if we want to attract more people, maybe we do need to think about how we can block it up into 6-week blocks with goals in mind, challenges. I know that one of the gyms that we work with in London has a lot of success around 21-day challenges. Sometimes people repeat them, but just having a goal to work towards is something that I think we could bring more into group fitness, and I think a lot of brands are. I know that from the history of group fitness with Freestyle and with Les Mills, it was more around quarterly releases and keeping people in. But if you look at some of the products that Les Mills are bringing out, they're more seasonal and focused around a limited time period rather than an evergreen.
Yeah, and I think for the instructors who are listening out there is one thing with EMD UK, we are about how we make it inclusive. And you go back to that, how do we shift that dial from 15 to 18%? A 6-week cyclical program could be about, look how the success of 0 to 5K was, right? It's
exactly.
Think of that. It doesn't have to be a very performance goal. We're very much advocates of getting more people moving in any shape or format. So that could be from sofa to the class and how we can link in those things. So one of those areas which I'm talking about with barriers as well, what I'm really interested in is around mental health with men as well. It's coming out in the open more that people are wanting to talk about it, but is group exercise a solution or a way to help men with their mental health?
I think obviously, I'm not speaking as an expert, but as someone who's watched adolescence and who is aware of all of the manosphere and red pilling and all the dialogue and discourse coming around male loneliness and that kind of culture. group training is a group experience. It's a team sport, not a sport specifically, but it's like a team sport. So
I like it how you put that as team sport, because I think if men thought of it as a team
yeah,
sport,
exactly.
it's not the
Yeah, and the better thing is like men will often continue to exercise, but they'll continue to exercise in a sporting way. Like I know a lot of guys that I worked with when I was still working as a lawyer would do five-a-side football. Like Keir Starmer famously still plays as five-a-side. But the problem is that if you get injured or you're not able to make the game, or say you've got golf planned in and your friend has family commitments and can't make the golf game, you probably don't do the sport. And it's very easy to drop off. Whereas with a group class, it's on the schedule, but it's not just one person or a team that's going to be there. It's going to be a group of people. And if you have adherence to that and you come to the group class every week, then you create a network of community that you are happy to see, even if the person that you were supposed to be working out with that day can't make it. So for me, group fitness is an amazing way to create connection. I think we all know that as group fitness instructors. That's the key thing we're delivering. And so my simple answer is yes, if we could get more guys into class, I'm sure that would be helpful to men's mental health generally.
We hope you're enjoying this episode of Beyond the Studio. We've been scouting the sector to find the people and the stories that move just like this one. Maybe you have a story from your career in group exercise that you think is worth telling. If so, get in touch through emduk.org. We'd love to hear it and see what's going on for you beyond the studio. So let's talk about another barrier that people have, and also with programming with classes for group exercise. And I know you're a big advocate with this with Shift, and one of the reasons you built Shift is around making our classes more inclusive and going through things like modifications, because a lot of people are taught. There are very different types of instructors nowadays. There's taught to perform, and there's a taught to teach and modify.
Yeah.
How have you enveloped that within your Shift programming?
How do I say this? As someone who started teaching when I was 19, when I started teaching, and this is a bit of a roundabout way of getting to the point of your question, but I will get there, I promise. When I started teaching, I went to that class and I saw people up the front, and I wanted to be the person up the front creating that environment. So it was very sort of self-focused and ego-driven, but not in a negative way, because I wanted to create this. I wanted to be a host, and I wanted to create the space for the people. And for doing that, that required that I be the best. And so I worked extremely hard. I team taught so many classes, like the amount of hours that I put into just sort of developing my abilities. And it was all very self-focused, but in a way that I wanted to create a class that people would want to come to. So like, it wasn't a bad thing. I don't think we should always think that self-focused stuff is necessily bad.
But you're talking about the development of yourself as aesthetic, so you looked the best to be able to teach the best as well, or verbal cueing?
No, I needed to be the best cuer. I needed to jump the highest. Right. I needed to like have the best connection with the music, all that sort of stuff. All the things that were great with Les Mills, because obviously there was a progression pathway, and I could learn from people that were absolutely amazing and progress to a point where I was, teaching to thousands of people internationally, which is eventually where I got to. And then as I got older and less able to jump really high, and I started to incur a few injuries. I slipped a couple of discs in my back. I realized that I like being as physically impressive and creating an amazing experience by being able to do the highest tuck jump wasn't something that was physically available to me anymore. And I'd noticed a shift in my classes, because when I would say, I'm not going to do this move because I can't do it, the people would come up after and go, I really liked it when you said that you weren't able to do this move and you gave modifications. Not because they couldn't necessarily do it. I have a real problem with my Achilles tendons didn't grow properly, and so I can't really squat. Right. I managed to like fib and hide it for most of my career, but I am probably have the least mobile squats of anybody in the entire world. That's a big problem when it comes to fitness. But I just make it work. And I used to hide it and put lifts in my shoes and things, whereas now I just get a couple of plates out and say, I don't have mobility in my hips and I've got no dorsiflexion. I'm going to be doing this. And it just allowed people in the class to come up to me and say, oh, I can't do that thing either. It
gives them a permission, doesn't it? It's like, because they're not trying to achieve and be who you are.
Correct.
By you not being able to do something, it gives them permission to kind of go, oh, well, actually, I also have this.
Absolutely. And I think that as instructors, we can often hide the things that we think are not good enough, or that we aren't doing perfectly. but they're often the things that will allow you to connect with your classes the most. So to get around to your point, now that I've kind of laid the groundwork, I spent a year working at ClassPass right before I went full-time with Shift. And part of what I did with that job, I was managing the UK, but I had access to all of their data. And so I could see exactly what were the most popular classes in London and the whole of the UK. I went to all of the most popular classes. And the thing that I realized, speaking as someone who'd spent 15, probably 16 years as an international trainer, training instructors, knowing what I thought was an excellent class, knowing what a skill set was, knowing what good programming was. So I'm someone that devoted their life to creating great programming and being a great presenter. The most popular classes were not the best. Sometimes there was a bit of crossover, but often the people were technically not great and the programming was not great. But what they did always across the board was they were an amazing host. They welcomed people. They were engaged with the class. They were present, and they were allowing people to come to them with problems or to be in their own space.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you had really great technical instructors that I would be like, okay, I could put them on a video presentation tomorrow. More often than not, they weren't. And so that really colored my interpretation, coming from a world where you needed to be the best in order to be on the DVD or the video. That included the best physical execution as well as the best teaching. The thing that I realized that we've tried to build more into the product that we do with Shift is that it's more about enabling the instructor to be a host and to deliver change to the people in front of them.
Yeah.
So we're really, really focused on not necessarily needing to be the best person in the room and being able to modify to every different type of level. I can think of so many times when I've gone to a yoga class or a Bikram class, and the yoga instructor has been very good, but they keep doing the poses in the most sort of exemplary way, and I just feel like a bit of a failure.
Yeah.
So we have gone out of our way to program in a way that allows all of the classes to be scaled and modified in a way that's a bit more specific. All of our warm-ups are moves that you'll see later in the class so that it gives people a place to, if they don't feel that they can progress, they don't have to.
Yeah.
And then we also focus on just making sure we showcase a range of moves. One of the things we used to do when I was doing the Les Mills videos is that we'd do the options, but we'd do it all high and then we'd all do the options. So, which is great. Like their quality of their content is great, but it's almost easier if you have a person that isn't so good, that makes people feel a bit more included. If I could give them any suggestions, it would be don't always have young, hot people on the videos. It's great to have people that are real because it makes people engage with the content and not feel that not feel that they're not good enough.
Yeah, it's funny because I actually have started going back to classes because I'm writing the scopes of practice for group exercise, and I've been going to one of the instructors that brings a member of the class up on stage to take part and do that one element with them.
Yep.
And it is really, I shine when I see people doing that. I think it's a great way to encourage the next generation of it. But it also, again, you can see the class, the whole mood changes when one of them is brought up to be able to do it. And everyone's trying to aspire to be up there and it doesn't matter how good you've got people from all different age groups.
Yeah.
So I think it's what's key, going back to a little bit of summary of what you just have said, is it's about meeting people where they're at, right? So again, having that permission for somebody to walk into your class and feel like I belong, by not being I have to aspire to be it. It's great to have the aspirations, but we need to make sure that we're creating, if we're going to shift that dial from the 15-18% and move forward, we've got to create those inclusive spaces. So is there any top tips you've got from what you're just saying, if for instructors who are listening here today on our podcast, is for the inclusivity, the pieces that we've just been talking around about the male, what's maybe your 5 top tips for...
Five.
Five. Well, however many top tips that you can think it would go to make a change in your delivery tomorrow. What could you do that might shift that dial?
Okay, so the first thing that I would say is that we are all going to be motivated by different things at different points in our careers, and we have a problem with recruiting younger instructors. So I think what I would say that if you're still the person, if you're watching this and you're a younger instructor, great, because we need more of you. But if you're still the person that really does want to be physically impressive and be able to role model great technique and execution, that's not a bad thing. That led me to be really good because I was so self-focused. But as you age, your priorities will change. And for the inclusivity piece, we need all different types of instructors because we know that people will be motivated and will connect to different types. So I think the first thing would be maybe just doing a little bit of an audit and thinking about where you are on your journey and not taking my words as someone in their mid-40s that can't really jump that high anymore as being the thing that you need to work towards, but kind of figuring out what are your motivations and why you're doing it and how can you maybe build up the inclusivity or the empathy aspects of what you're doing if you're a little bit younger. It took me a long time to do it, but once I developed that and realized that I didn't have to always be jumping so high, it allowed me to connect more. It was more enjoyable and it was a little bit less physically demanding. I was a little bit less hard on myself. The second thing would be I don't focus so much on classes that require you to spend a whole lot of time unpaid outside of class. That's been the biggest thing that we've tried to solve with Shift. And so I put my money where my mouth is here, is trying to create a solution where instructors can just turn up and teach a class because that's what they're getting paid for.
Yeah.
Getting into pay is too big a deal to get into today, so I'm sure we won't talk about it. But if you're an instructor that's doing a whole lot of work unpaid outside of class, I'm here to tell you that it's probably not that useful. If you're learning choreography so that you can perfectly do the punch on that beat, that's not going to move the needle for your classes and not going to move the needle for your members, and probably you ain't getting paid for it. So my advice would be think about actually just investing more energy and thought into the time you are in the class when you are also getting paid, and a little bit less stress about what you're doing outside of the class, because simple things are much more popular now than they've ever been before. The days of having to learn complex choreography are gone. The biggest things right now are strength and Pilates. Pilates has, 38? Is it 38 moves or 36 moves? Yeah. Pilates has a certain number of moves and no more. And a strength class, it'll focus on big lifts and then accessory lifts. But neither of those things will probably be in time with the music. Both of those things, the focus is on simplicity and effect rather than on complex choreography. So, think about leveraging your effort to the things that will create change for your members, which is being present, providing modifications, creating community, and stop stressing about all the work you do outside of the class because it's not really moving the needle. It once did. It was once the case that people loved choreographed classes, but they're just not that popular anymore. Yeah. Speaking as someone who was doing a step class this morning and was choreographing a step class for Pure Gym this morning, so they still exist, they're still good, but the backbone of a timetable is strength and Pilates and things that don't require you to do a whole lot of work outside of class. But if you spend an hour preparing for your class and then you turn up to class and you're just focused on getting your choreography perfect and you don't say hello to your members and say goodbye to your members and ask them what modifications they need, you're not doing the right thing as an instructor. You're not spending your time in the right place and you're focusing on bits that you're not getting paid for.
Yeah. Another wrap up, one of your top tips as well. I'm going to look at it from a male instructor's point of view. Tip to any potential male instructors out there.
Yeah, we get involved. So if you're someone that used to play sport or you're currently doing like strength conditioning or CrossFit or high rocks, think about like potentially teaching a class. One of the biggest formats right now is circuit style functional training. So like F45, Les Mills Ceremony, we have our circuit product. It's easy to teach. It's simple. You can use all your strength training and it allows you to get involved in something that maybe you didn't think you could be involved in before. The time's never been better. If you're someone that didn't really gel with a Zumba or a choreographed class, the time has never been better to jump in because functional training is where it's at. High Rocks and the High Rocks inspired group classes is something that's going to get you members, going to be really highly valued by any facility you work with. And it's also really easy to teach.
Yeah. We've kind of covered this, but I suppose summarising again, your approach, it's very clear your approach has changed over the years to it. So there will be many instructors out there who are going through changes within their career or even just starting out. I'm thinking about that whole approach. Any summary or top tips for people about because your approach has changed significantly from the beginning to end. We've kind of covered it, but what does that look like? What advice can you give to the instructors out there?
Yeah, my advice would be, honor the place that you're at and think about how it can positively inform your teaching. So, for example, when I slipped the discs in my back, I was like, maybe that's it for me for teaching. And as I get older, by exercising a lot, I'm just basically grabbing more injuries as I go. But what I've realized is that sharing those with the class is an opportunity for you to connect and will do more good than trying to hide it. Yeah. One of the saddest things about the pandemic, I think, was that we lost a lot of instructors from the industry. It got too hard. People left. But I think my advice, speaking as someone who started doing this when I was in my late teens and is now in my mid-40s and has taught the entire time, is one, just because you can't move the way you used to move doesn't mean that you should give up. If anything, now's the time when you can connect with more people and bring that in. And two, think about what people want from classes now. If you're someone that was teaching for a long time, it's possible that you used to freestyle and spend a lot of time preparing freestyle classes, and your idea of what's required in order to teach group fitness might not be the reality anymore. It might be that you can use, if you're an older instructor, you can use your talents and just turn up and teach, and that's not bad. Like, I don't think we should get into the idea of thinking that you're only doing well as an instructor if you're spending a lot of time preparing outside of class. That's not where the change happens. It's where the change happens for you, but as I said, in my opinion, being fantastic and great is not what creates a big great class. Yeah. And if you're younger and you do want to be fantastic and great, then do that, because I think that it's really important to, there's a place for that as well, particularly in boutique. Yes. So you have the situation where a younger person might be more involved in boutique, and where a younger person, I know that I was inspired by inspiring people when I was in my 20s. Now that I'm in my 40s, I'm inspired by people that make me feel like, oh, I can do that too. Yeah. So if you're a younger instructor, think about the places where being that kind of inspiring instructor might work. But if you're an older instructor, gyms and in the community is somewhere where your problems might actually give people permission to join in a way that you couldn't before.
At the end of every podcast, if you don't mind, we do this one segment called the ripple effect. And it's where we try and create a ripple effect of everybody who's listening on the podcast to go, what could they do to make change? So we're going to look at this one question of going, if you could give advice to an instructor today to make a change, or if they're thinking about coming into the sector, what would that tip be?
Ooh. It would be that the value you get back is not going to be financial. And I know that a lot of people won't want to hear that, but it's just, the reality is that if you do this, it's got to be for reasons other than you'll get paid well, because unfortunately that has been a perennial problem with the industry. But what you do get back is the ability to change people's lives and to create connection, and it doesn't have to be as hard as you think it might be. The easy step in might be just doing something that requires no prep. Come to shift. We'll do the content for you, but not meaning to plug it. Like 20 years, 25 years later, the connections that I've made I can think of a number of times when people have come up to me at the end of a class and told me about how I've created change for them. And it's something that when I was younger would just kind of surprise me and I wouldn't expect it. But that as I've got older and I've realized the people that have helped me in that way, it becomes really meaningful. Yeah. And so this has to be something that you do for the non-financial benefits. Yeah. Totally try and get paid. Do all you can to get paid, but it will give something back to you that is more than financial.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you, Will. Thanks for joining us today. It's been great. And if people wanted to connect with you beyond the podcast, is there a way that they can get hold of you?
Sure. They can email us at Shift, that's Shift with one, info@shiftfitness.com. It'll come to my team and just say you want to say something to me, or catch up with me, will.brereton on Instagram and social media.
That's it from myself and Will. Thank you so much for listening, and don't forget to follow for more stories that move beyond the studio.